When we surveyed from 2009 to 2017, 18, when we surveyed thousands of business owners, why did you go into business? Almost all of them did not say, so I can go build a $100 million business, have a financial freedom, and make a lot of money. Almost all of them said, 70% of them said, because I didn't want a boss, I didn't want to be told what to do, I didn't want a limitation on my earnings, and I didn't want to be accountable to anybody else. So here's something I've learned. If you're not committed to your goals, you're not going to care about mine. Great people are never going to work for a shitty business owner.
That's a good comment. It's true.
I recognize it's my responsibility as a leader to teach people how to actually identify how to get what they want.
Welcome to the Excellence Project. In this episode, we talk to Brandon Dawson, who works with Cardone Ventures and is one of the smartest business people I know, specifically in the area of growing and scaling a business, creating systems around growing your business. I had a lengthy conversation with him because I found all of this so fascinating for me personally, and I think you're going to find it fascinating as well. So with no further ado, let's jump into our conversation with Brandon Dawson. Brandon Dawson, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here with you.
I'm glad you're here. The growth and scale expert. That's how I think of you. When I think of your particular skill set, the ability to identify companies, help them grow and scale their business. And I think everybody's kind of interested in this idea, right, of growth and scale, because I've lived in the solopreneur, entrepreneur world, right? I think there's different types, the kind of businesses that are just one person with an idea, a dream, maybe somebody in network marketing, somebody in some sort of small business. And then there's the ones that actually have employees, but they don't really have scale. They're kind of owned by their business, kind of controlled by their business. And then there's the ones that do get growth and scale. And those seem to be kind of rare, these unicorns out there, the people who actually get to the other side of the grind and get into lifestyle. So I want to talk about all these things in our conversation. But were you always interested in business?
I think as a little kid, I moved to Minnesota. I think I was 8 years old, and my stepdad was...
Wait. Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Where in Minnesota?
Eden Prairie.
Get out of here.
That's true.
That's where all my children went to high school.
Oh, yeah?
Eden Prairie High School.
Eden Prairie High School?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. Small world.
That is very small world.
Small world. And he started a little hearing aid manufacturing company. And I grew up watching that thing go from a few employees to
Bill Austin?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. It's like we're like connected to the same people, the Starkey Hearing Foundation, the whole deal.
So the whole deal, my mother was the one that originated that with Bill Austin in 1976.
No way.
You didn't even know this
I
part.
did not know this story.
Yeah. So my mother was a nurse. She worked for an ENT doctor in Oregon, married to my father, who was a pastor. And she met Bill Austin. My father and my mother got divorced. She moved to Minnesota in 1976, and I went with her at 8 years old.
We've supported the Starkey Hearing Foundation for forever.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Incredible vision there, but weird. So weird that it kind of comes around. And Bill's an entrepreneur.
Bill is an entrepreneur.
No joke. I mean, he's a big
joke.
philanthropist, but he's a smart cookie.
100%.
Really, really smart. I learned a very interesting lesson from him. Yeah, I'll give you a quick Bill Austin story. Yeah. I'm sure you have.
I've got more than most
a lot
people.
of them, but I'll tell you the one story. And I'm going to use a U.S. president that he was going to polarize our audience. I'm sure it's at some level, but he was at an event, and for years, this is probably, I'm not even going to date it, but people were telling him, Bill, slow down. You got all the money in the world. You need to enjoy it. Family's giving him pressure. It's like, come on, you got to go do this, you got to do that. And he's like, oh, one more hearing aid, one more kid, one more this, one more trip, one more everything. And I think they were giving out like 50,000 hearing aids a year at that time. And he was at this event with then President Clinton. And President Clinton pulled him aside and he said, I know everybody's telling you to slow down. He said, but I just need you to know, man to man, you need to double what you're doing. He said, slowing down is not even an option, and you know it. So go do what you were meant to do. And he needed somebody, some bigger hammer, to come in and give him permission to go bigger, which he did. And just enjoyed himself doing that process, doubled it to 100,000 hearing aids around the year, each year, out to kids for free and all this stuff. But an interesting lesson of sometimes you need a bigger hammer when the world's telling you to slow down, to speed up.
Yeah. I mean, I started with him when he had a handful of people, and it was my mother and him that fit Ronald Reagan with the first in-the-ear hearing aid. And I actually walked Ronald Reagan's ear mold back into the back lab with Bill in the middle of the night, because no one wanted, the President Reagan didn't want anybody to know. He had the hearing aid in for about 6 months, and someone said, "What's that in your ear?" And he said, "That's my new Starkey." And the business went from maybe 10 million in revenue to 100 million in revenue within 3 years, 1986. So from 83 to 86. And by the time 1982 came around, I moved back to Oregon with my dad and my stepmom, but I spent all my vacations in Minneapolis, and you'd show up and it would be, here's the hearing aids, here's the razor blades, cut the face plates, clip the microphones and receivers, test them with an OM meter, put them in the good or put them in the recondition or put them in the back, go sort the silver batteries from the non-silver batteries, shuck the shipping boxes, go to the everything. I sat on the line at 12 years old. So I got to watch this thing. And my last position as Starkey was director of U.S. sales, and he and my mom started into a fairly significant divorce starting in 1992. I left in 1995, and that's when I started my first company, and I was the first guy to consolidate the hearing care space because they were all our customers.
Wow. So crazy.
Yeah.
The only other story I'll tell you about Starkey and Bill was we went to a hearing aid thing at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We went and helped a bunch of kids, and he said, we have to stop on the way back. So, okay. And we were on his plane. And so we stopped, and we ended up going to Billy Graham's house. Mm-hmm. So we go up to the top of this mountain. We go to Billy Graham's house, and I'm like, what is going on? And we're like going in and seeing Billy Graham, and he prayed over Marina and myself, which was like really cool, before he passed. But to be able to, like, these icons of these people to get to hang out with is pretty fascinating. But
and the thing about Bill is that and I learned a lot from Bill. I also learned a lot from my dad, who was an entrepreneur, because he had to take care of 5 boys and they didn't have any money, and he worked, and he put us through school doing part-time stuff for HP that we all helped out at. But Bill was just always a character and taught me a lot about tenacity and resilience. I watched his whole executive team try to overthrow him in 1986.
Wow.
And had him throw everybody out, and they were telling him he's going to go out of business. And at least on 6 or 8 different occasions, he was told he was going to go out of business. And he managed to build that business all the way to where it is today. And in fact, they were in talks to buy me when, in our due diligence, we're the ones that caught all the executives stealing from them.
Oh, really? Just in this
in 2016.
Yeah,
that was us in there that found that.
Wow.
So I was right in the mix of all that stuff, and so it's an interesting story because, but the one thing I was going to say about Bill is Bill was like, he didn't care what color you were, what language you spoke, if you were a Democrat or Republican, because, many of his meetings, on one side of them was Bill Clinton, on the other side was George Bush. Sure. And he fit every single living president with hearing aids that needed him. And almost everybody else that was anybody else. He would do it himself. And he still today sits in the same spot as when I was a little kid, and he still fits those hearing aids.
I know it.
And I used to sponsor later in life, after the divorce settled and after all that stuff shook out. I had started my business, and then it sold, the one I took public, and in fact, you can go back to an article in 1998, and it was Forbes magazine, and it was titled "Kicked Out of Your Family's Business," or how to get the best revenge when you're kicked out of your family's business. And it was a story about Bill and I, because I left due to the divorce, and I didn't really agree with certain things.
Sure.
But we circled back in 2006 and 2007, and we partnered, and they became my largest supplier. And we killed it. And then when I was listing the business for sale, he was an interested potential buyer, and then we found the fraud. And so that's what uncovered that. And then we ended up selling to a Danish public company.
So fascinating.
Small world.
So we bounce forward, but I do want to get back to kind of origin, right?
Yeah.
So you had some entrepreneur influences early on, which I think that does create a bit of a blueprint. One way or the other, I think the way people are raised, it's kind of how you react to whatever happens to you in life. I mean, if you are raised in a blue collar family, you're either going to go blue collar or you're going to go opposite blue collar. If you're raised in as a son of a farmer, you're either going to become a farmer or you're going to the city, right? There tends to be one of these different decisions. So either sometimes there's entrepreneurs that are in your family and sometimes there aren't, but you're like, you know what? There needs to be an entrepreneur in the family. So you had some examples that created a bit of a blueprint for you.
I was actually extremely blessed on both sides because I had the true rich dad, poor dad.
Really?
I had the entrepreneur stepdad who is crazy and built $1 billion business that's worth billions.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived from startup all the way through that cycle. And then I had my father, who's a pastor, became business owner or business operator, and my stepmom, who is an insurance adjuster. And they had 5 boys they were putting through school, and we were middle class, I would call it. But in order for me in that environment to have my football cleats and be able to do sports, I had to work. So it was always school, work, practice, and then work. And that was 7 days a week because they didn't have any money. So gas money, car money, all that, I had to figure out how to fend for myself. And it forced me to be creative. And then I would go, I busted my ass every time I was with my parents working ever since I was a little kid. Even when I lived there as a little kid in 76, 77, 78, I was working in the factory because that's what I did to fill my time.
Right.
So growing up with that work ethic on both sides was amazing, but to get to see what an entrepreneur that creates something massive and then get to see somebody who's willing to sacrifice creating something massive to create for their family.
Right.
And I got both sides of that with both my parents. I was very
so interesting. So the question I have for you, and this is the big question. What would have happened if your parents took care of every need you had? All the football cleats, all the car.
I probably would have grown up entitled like a lot of the kids are today. You know, I mean, my daughters are beautiful.
You don't think you would have found the drive anyway? Or
I would have. I was selling pumpkins on the side of the road at 8 years old. I think somehow, I don't think I would have been trapped in a small town doing the same redundant thing.
I just wonder, you wonder if entitlement, gives some a boost, or if it hobbles some that should have had, you had to find their own grit. You just kind of don't know.
You don't know. You only know when you know. It's in reflection. And I've met people that came from families with an enormous amount of money who ended up being disasters and killing themselves from drugs because they were bored and didn't have any cause or purpose. And I met people that came from dead broke families who became very wealthy and
vice versa
people.
too.
I watch it both ways.
Successful people have successful kids.
Oh, 100%.
Right. And
100%.
failures have failure kids too.
Yeah. So it's hard for me to say just because you're in one. For me personally though, would I trade any of how I grew up? The answer is no. So many remarkable reference points. I mean, to learn at 15 years old what the Kanban system is, because I would go out.
The Kanban.
Kanban. So I would just-in-time manufacturing. Like who would have thought when you're a little kid, and I wasn't a very good student, but I wasn't an idiot either. I'd come back from football practice in Minnesota and there'd be a bunch of stacked green boxes. Well, I learned very quickly green boxes were new orders. Then I'd come back and there'd be stacked yellow boxes. The yellow boxes would be repairs. And then I'd come back and there'd be stacked yellows. It used to be all greens. Then it went to a lot of yellows. And then after we introduced Reagan's hearing aids and a new circuit, all of a sudden they were all red. Red meant we want our money back. So as a little kid, I knew when I walked in that factory, if I saw red, I panicked too. My job was to take the red boxes, a razor blade, cut the faceplates off and salvage whatever we could salvage inside that hearing aid. And the red started out stacking the greens. And then even as a little kid, no one has to tell you there's problems. And so to learn that visually, and then figure out how to help to solve that problem and then watch your family iterate out of that and become a powerhouse, I wouldn't trade those reference points for anything.
Oh, fascinating. Do you think entrepreneurs are made or born?
I think they're made. I think they either make themselves or they follow the leadership of somebody else. And and or the example of somebody else. Because I know a lot of people that don't come from entrepreneurial families that became entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that have this idea that no, you either are or you aren't. You're born that way or you're not. I think everybody is kind of born an entrepreneur. Everybody. And some just decide not to from their own programming, or they're programmed not to. And it's like beaten out of them. No, 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 no. They get enough no's and they say, you know, this isn't safe. I'm not going to do this anymore. But I think we all have it in us. You know, I think entrepreneurs create where we bring value, we change the world, we make things better. That's what we're trying to do. We're artists of a sort in business, right? You know, when I think of you, I don't know if you consider yourself an artist, but I would consider you an artist in business, in how you look at a business and what you do with a business, how you mold it and shape it, those types of things. And that's what I think of entrepreneurs. My highest, I have two honors I can give somebody. One, if they're a promoter, if they're a badass promoter, that's as high, almost as high as I can give somebody.
Of course, that's a massive skill set.
And second is if they're an artist.
Yeah.
If they're just world-class at what they do and whatever that is that they decide to do, they're just going to be great at it. I don't even care what it is. I admire an artist or a person who decides to devote themselves to becoming world-class at whatever it is that they're passionate about.
Agreed.
So, all right. Growing up, you weren't any spectacular student, yes?
I barely got out of high school. I hated school.
Really?
I only passed my grades because my dad told me if I didn't get a C or better, I couldn't play football, baseball, or basketball.
So you got C's or better because you had to.
Well, I actually graduated like a 2.4. I barely got out.
Where was your dad a pastor?
In Oregon.
In Oregon?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was at some community churches and a Foursquare church. And then he and my mom became the Celebrate Recovery Northwest region. They had like 1,000 families under them.
Yeah. So my dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, there you go.
You know,
Makes
so
sense.
in the Minneapolis Twin City area, you know, the big non-denominational church.
Yeah.
At the
That's
time.
what my dad was.
Yeah. Crazy. So many similarities. It's weird. So coming out of this, did you go to college?
No, I did until I realized I wasn't going to pass any of the classes. So I dropped out. That's when I talked my stepdad into letting me move to Atlanta from Portland, Oregon. My mom thought I was still in college. I became an outside sales rep for Starkey in Atlanta. I had North, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Western Florida. And let me tell you something, working out of a Ford Taurus, traveling with no home, with your suitcase, it was the greatest experience I could have ever thought of having as a kid. I had to learn to talk to adults, work with older people, find my way around, do my own expense reports. I had to grow up. And I was really super good at sales.
So you're good at sales. Coming out of this whole thing, you're figuring out how to sell, how to interact with people, how to build relationships. Like when you're doing outside sales, were you like driving from house to house?
This is pretty funny. So I was supposed to be inside sales. And I land because I was working one day a week in Portland and I was out selling people working full time. And I was selling behind the ear hearing aids over the phone. And so I go to Atlanta to be an inside sales rep. And the day I landed, my little 65-year-old boss, Gil Malone, little Italian guy, he says, "Hey, do you have any suits?" We're walking through the Atlanta airport. And I said, "Suits? I don't have any suits. I'm 18 and a half years old." He said, "I got to get you a couple suits." So he goes into the suits store there and he gets me a black 3-piece polyester and a blue 3-piece polyester, pink shirt with paisley pink ties. And I said, "Why do I got to get suits?" He says, "Because the outside sales rep got ill. So you have to drive Tuesday over to Alabama and you have to do an open house for an ENT." And I was like, I don't ever talk to, outside of going with my mom when she was a hearing aid rep, I never, I never worked with the public. And he's like, "Sorry, man, you got to do it." And so I was like, all right. So I got in my car and I drove over there to Birmingham, Alabama. And funny story, it was July. I'm an Oregon boy, never been in the South. And I got my beautiful 3-piece suit on with my pink polyester tie. And I parked about 8 blocks from the university where I was doing the open house. By the time I got there, because it was July and the humidity, I looked like a wet rat. So the lady says to me, "Hey, you might want to go back to your hotel and change because you look like a disaster." So I came into that open house and it was 3 days. I didn't even know what I was supposed to do. I had no context. I had nothing. So I asked the doctor, what's the process here? He says, well, I'm going to see the patient. I'm going to give it to the nurse. Nurse is going to test their hearing. They're going to give them to you as a hearing aid rep. You need to sell them the hearing aids. I was like, all right. So they bring the people in. I don't know what to talk to them about. So they sit down and I go, what brought you in here, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson? They tell me and I'd say, okay, well, if we could fix that for you, would you want to experience that? And they'd say, yeah. And I'd say, great. Okay. The hearing aids can do that. And I'd circle it and say, needs help here, and put an arrow and say, we can do that. I did it over and over and over and over and over, and everybody bought. At the end of the open house, the guy says, you sold more hearing aids the fastest of any rep we've ever worked with in the hearing care space. You're unbelievable. I drive back to Atlanta. My boss is like, these guys are raving about you. You sold more hearing aids than anybody ever sells. What's the secret? I said, I didn't know what to talk about. So I just asked them why they were there. When they told me, I said, if we could fix that, would you want to know it? And they said, yeah. And I said, great, we can fix it. That's literally all I did. And I learned really super early on, the simpler you made the process and the more you can make it their idea, the less you actually had to be a sales expert. That served me extremely well throughout my career because I just let buying from me everybody else's idea.
So does that apply to every profession?
Today, I mean, I started this business with Grant 3.5 years ago. We're going to do $125 million this year. No startup capital, no debt. Neither of us put any money in the company. Already generated $150 million in revenue and $50 million of profits and from startup. So it seems like it served me well.
And it's the same process?
It's me asking the entrepreneurs, what are you struggling with? Where do you need help? And if I could help you do it, would you want to do that with me? And the answers unanimously have been yes.
And you just help them do it.
And I help them do it.
Well, the good news is you can deliver.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody can say it.
That is the point.
But you can deliver. You
have to deliver.
What is the secret to being able to grow and scale a business?
So I think it's always important for when someone's listening to this is to understand that people can lie, but the statistics never do. So it's really important to understand what it means to be a small business owner. There's 31.5 million businesses under $100 million from startup. Out of the 31.5 million small to mid-sized businesses in the United States, 25 million have that sole entrepreneur working by themselves. Then you have 5.3 million businesses that have 12 employees or less. And then you only have 600,000, so less than 2% that have over 12 employees. So it's really super hard to get over 12 employees if you're under 100 million. 97% of all those businesses cyclically will go out of business every 10 years. 2/3 will go out of business in the first 5. So the stats are entirely against you. And when we surveyed from 2009 to 2017, 18, when we surveyed thousands of business owners, why did you go into business? Almost all of them did not say, so I can go build a $100 million business, have a financial freedom, and make a lot of money. Almost all of them said, 70% of them said, because I didn't want a boss, I didn't want to be told what to do, I didn't want a limitation on my earnings, and I didn't want to be accountable to anybody else. So they started their business from what they didn't want, not from what they did want. Now I call this the entrepreneur dilemma because now you go hire employees and you think employees are like you. Don't want to be told what to do, don't want a limitation on your earnings, want to be left alone. And so that's how you treat them, which is why businesses struggle because there's no discipline, there's no accountability, there's no direction, there's no reward system. It's just kind of, hey, do what I wanted to do when I was there and figure it out, right? And then they're let down. And even the ones that get bigger, they crash and burn after within 10 years because they just get too big. They fall on top of themselves. So the stats are against you being a small to mid-sized business owner. So when you ask me the question, like what's involved with growing and scaling, it's first of all, if you were NASA and you were going to have a mission to go to Mars or to go to the moon, you'd have to have a mission and you'd have to have a purpose. And you'd say it's to go to the moon or it's go to fix a satellite. Like you'd have a reason to do it, right? Most business owners don't have a reason. The reason is what they don't want. So they don't have the intentionality to move to what they do want. And when you don't have intentionality, you don't put strategy behind it. And where you're devoid of strategy, you're going to get lost in the weeds. And so it's kind of an algorithm for why they fail. Now contrast that to the small percentage that succeed. They usually have a very specific intention of what they want to accomplish. They have targets, they have goals. They're focused on leadership and they're focused on mechanically putting their business together, and they're focused on hiring the right people and inspiring them and incentivizing them to execute. And that's a different mindset than what I don't want and just kind of meandering through the woods to see where you can get to the other side. And I think intentionality has everything to do with the ultimate success in business.
I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, their intention is just to make money. You know, I just want to make money. And this is a means to an end. This is a way that I can go make some money. Is that enough of a reason?
No.
So what do people need to do to get beyond that? It's like, okay, they join, they start a business, or they join network marketing. They want to make some extra money, or they want to go, they want to fire their boss and go to work for themselves. They want to call their own shots, all these things, like you said, which are a lot of drivers, a lot of emotional drivers. They're tired of being put down. They're tired of living under somebody else's thumb, only getting time off when somebody else says so, all these emotional things.
Yep.
But they have this product or service. You're saying that they need to completely shift their focus back around to the product or service itself, or to the customer, and then come back to the product or service, and then come back to how the business provides it. What's the first step?
So there's 10 elements, to growing and scaling a business. And these are pretty much in order. So the first element, these are the 10 elements that should be in order. Okay. So the first element should be strategy. Second element would be marketing, because that's how you get clients, is through promotion. Third element would be conversion, which is sales. The fourth element would be people, because you need people for expansion. The fifth element would be finance, because you got to know how to make the numbers work. The sixth element would be operations, because you got to link everything together. The seventh element would be leadership, because the more people you get and the more complexity you get, the stronger leader you have to become. The eighth element would be data. You got to know how to track and look at data and how things impact other things. The ninth element is technology. You got to know what technologies to deploy when and how to use them. And then the 10th element is investment thesis. Where do you deploy your capital to get the highest return on investment? And so now, those 10 elements, in order to get to 125 to 175 million in revenue, you have to have all 10 of those elements deployed. And if you looked at it on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being perfect, 1 being not at all, those, in order to be 125 to 175 million in revenue, you're going to have to be a 4 to a 7 across those 10 elements in order to get that big. When you start your business, you start it though with 2 elements, marketing and sales. And so it doesn't matter what you do, that's what you do. You go get a business card, you go get a phone number, and you go tell somebody, hey, I just opened my accounting firm, or I just opened my law firm, or I just decided to get network marketing. I'm selling water softeners, or I'm selling vitamins, or I'm selling insurance products, whatever it is. So when people start their business, and remember, 97% of all businesses are trapped under 3 million in size. So the what you do, product or service or a combination thereof, will be enough to get you to 3 million in size. And you can throw a few people at it if you can market and if you can convert. Pretty simple. Once you get to 3 million, the complexity of the business is different. So the 3 to 8 million technical move, now you got to focus on operations and you got to focus on finance, because otherwise your business will buckle under the weight of trying to grow. But see, majority of people that start their business still don't start with strategy. So it's almost like when you talk about people just want to make more money. So law of attraction is a real thing, but law of attraction happens. It's an algorithm. It's first law of intention, then law of action, and then it attracts. It doesn't happen by accident. If you don't have intentionality and you don't take action towards a stated purpose or objective, you can't attract it to you. People sit around hoping things happen. So when you start your business and you're like, it'd be like me saying, hey, Eric, my daughter is in Las Vegas. Could you take my car and go pick her up and bring her back to me? There's not enough data for you to actually know how to succeed, but right. You could try, and you'd go get in the car and I could, she's on that side of town and it's about 20 minutes, and give you some data points. So that's the business owner that says, I just want to make more money. Well, wanting to make more money is different than saying, I want to make $1 million of income in 36 months. And then I want to make $2.5 million in 60 months. And then I want to be making $10 million a year in 10 years. If that's what you stated was what you wanted to attract, then you got to go ask questions. Who's the best person to help me get there? How did they do it? What did they do to get there? How do I model, mimic, and master what they did? So it'd force you into understanding in context what they did so you could go start to do it. That is a different intention than I just want to make more money and I hope I can make more than I did last year. See the difference between the two? Mm-hmm. Most people are like, I just want to make more money. I just want to be comfortable. I want to do something fun, but it's not a specific intention, and therefore you don't find a destination.
Where did you figure these 10 things out?
Researching almost 7,000 businesses over 10 years as to what their growth strategy was.
You researched 7,000 companies?
In 2009, I hired FTI out of Chicago. It's a $1 billion consulting firm, and I hired a bunch of kids out of Wharton, University of Portland, and one Harvard. And I did a study across all these hundreds and hundreds of industries to understand what convergence looks like, what disruption looks like, what consolidation looks like, and those businesses and consolidation theories and convergence theories that worked versus those that didn't. What were the components that allowed them to work? And then we surveyed thousands of entrepreneurs. And then in 2016, I refreshed that with IGS out of Boston. That's who a lot of the private equity guys used. And what we did is we force ranked a whole series of things on the top end, things like revenue. Is it private pay? Is it third party? Is it government business? Is it labor? Is it blue collar? Is it technology? And then inside of that were the implications of growth based on the size of the business and what they encountered at what point they encountered. And I created this data set that's massive. And I can pretty much tell you, I called it the breakpoints. There's 11 breakpoints between startup and $1 billion of revenue. And the breakpoints are 100,000 to 3 million, 3 to 8 million, 8 to 15 million, 15 to 25 million, 25 to 45, 45, 75, 75, 125, 125, 250, 250, 450, 450, 750, 750, 1 billion. And basically I've mapped all the implications that happen at each one of those breakpoints. If you don't have it in place, you'll collapse. If you do have it in place, you'll accelerate.
So when are you going to give me all this
well,
data?
This is how I started a business, that's going to do in its fourth year of business, I'll be over 125 million in revenue because I started with 125 and reversed it backwards. And what we teach in our programs are those principles you need in Breakpoint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
In each one of those principles.
Each principle. And I've created content around all those principles, a how-to or a do it for you. We engineer businesses for people against those principles and against the data. It's pretty fascinating, the data sets we have and the businesses that we used as test cases and what the ultimate results were. And it was really good work while I was building my company, the one I sold for 77 times EBITDA, 150 million. I built it using the principles that go into each of these breakpoints.
Now, figuring this out makes a business saleable, yes?
100%.
Yeah.
I wouldn't build a business. See, this is the other thing. I would only build a business if I knew what the exit values were at some predetermined point in time. Because why would I go build any business if it's not in a marketplace that's going to heat up and trade at the highest values?
Right.
Contrast that to a doctor who works for 30 years and shuts their practice down.
Right. Different story.
Or an insurance person who builds their insurance company with a captive insurance carrier who won't pay them but 3 or 4 times EBITDA for their business when the independents could get 8 to 10.
So you understand the numbers I don't understand.
Yeah, well, because I don't believe in doing anything if I don't know what the value proposition is.
Sure.
So if you're going to build anything, shouldn't you know what the highest, best, most value is in the process of building it? If you ask 90% of all business owners if they think annually about the equity value of their business, they would tell you no. Most don't even have good financials.
Right.
So
they're just going along.
They're just going along. There's zero intentionality.
What's funny is in your 10 elements, there's nothing about your product or service really.
That goes into strategy.
It's just assumed.
That goes into strategy.
So but you have this thing and then you figure out a strategy in order to sell it?
Yeah, or your strategy is the thing. For me, I'd start with what's the thing everybody needs and then I go build that.
Right. And does it have to be, when you're looking at companies, I've seen a couple different, very interesting things. It seems like some very successful people don't necessarily innovate with a brand new product. They take something that's already existing with a demand and they just do it better than somebody else. Some other product or service like that's out there. They just, yeah, we can do that, but we can do the rest of the stuff better. Does somebody have to totally innovate when it comes to product, or can they have a product that's similar to other products in the marketplace and they do better on the business side of things in order to be able to grow something worthwhile? Yeah.
So for me, if I was going to go start something from scratch, just like I did with this business, I would go, if I had no idea what I wanted to do, I would go out to the marketplace and find the fastest growing, most exciting, highest valued businesses in the marketplace. And I would go do that. And I wouldn't care what that is. because the thing is that very few people, unless you're Elon Musk or Bill Gates,
Right.
or Amazon dude, Bezos.
yeah.
Unless you're those guys, you're mimicking and modeling after something that's already existed. And the fastest way to success is taking a product or service that already works and just making it better in the delivery.
What's hot right now in the world?
Oh my gosh. I know you had my partner, Gary Brecka, on your show. Now that's an example. Gary Brecka, when I met Gary Brecka, he was working his ass off. He was scrambling. I was a client of his. And he had a little $3 million business busting at the seams. And we acquired 80% of that business. And I told him, look, I'm going to apply my growth methodologies. And he's gone from $300,000 a month to last month, we did $5 million a month. And so that business will be a $75 million business in a year and a half, right? And so Gary's just like, wow, I didn't even know any of this. Like because he was a technician, right? And so what's hot, like certain healthcare spaces where it's alternative medicine is hot because of all the stuff that's happened and getting the FDA shoved a bunch of stuff down our throat that was speculative and people are trying to recover from it. I think there's been a lot of trust lost in the medical system. Another thing that's hot is things like home services space is smoking hot right now. HVAC, anything that can take something old and upgrade it to something new and include technology to operate or to manage it. So garage door spaces, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, siding, roofing. Those are all those old blue collar businesses that traded at low values 10 years ago are all trading at high values now because people go and retro their older homes, but then when they do, they upgrade them to new technology. And so there's a recurring revenue theme that goes along with that. Home audio visual is a hot space right now because you used to have your home theater put in. Now you're running your curtains, your garage doors, your lights, your security system, your heating and air conditioning all on one app that has recurring revenue. So anything that touches and updates an older home that allows technology to interface is hot. The wellness space is hot, and that's health, but it's also the wellness. Financial services is smoking hot right now because people don't know what to do with their money. They don't know how to protect their money. There's a lot of loss of confidence, especially recently with the banks. That's an unbelievable hot space. Insurance is along the lines with that. I mean, look, there's so many hot businesses. I mean, right now we've got businesses.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just looking at, what's top of mind.
I could rattle off 100 businesses right now that I think are hot.
Really?
And so that's why, like, I'll tell you one that's really cool that we have only 2 businesses that we work with. I haven't seen very many of them, but we just experienced it with Grant Cardone. If you went into, say, an expensive home or an expensive building and you wanted to retro the HVAC inside of it, but that required you to literally tear all the walls out, it sucks. Or if you've got a house with an older main line from your house out to the city water line and they got to tear up the roads and tear up your house, it sucks. There's a new technology where they can actually run these scopes through there and it measures the diameter of everything and then it designs a pipe inside of a pipe so you can slide it in and it configures to it so you don't have to rip everything out. And it saves time, it saves money, and it's more efficient. And so I'm like, that space is unbelievable because the ability to save people money, do work faster, and retro everything is incredible. So there's niche businesses that could be huge, and that's the stuff I like to find.
Interesting. I love it. So you made a shift. I learned in doing some of my research for this about from managing your business on the outside and kind of people were a means to that to managing the people in your business and putting a major emphasis on building the people. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So that was the Achilles heel. So the first business I took public and I was killing it, and acquiring businesses. I was one of the youngest people to ring the opening bell of the American Stock Exchange, but I was really just shoving everything down the throat of my 400 employees. It was like, we got to hit numbers. Everybody go. I wasn't collaborating with anybody. I definitely wasn't aligning people with the opportunity. I just made the assumption, hey, if I hired you and put you in a role, you should figure it out and be able to. So I was one of the entrepreneurs that made those early stage mistakes. And when my private equity group sold the business out from underneath me, I was being kind of, a little drainer for a couple of years about how they screwed me over. And one of my mentors, you probably know him, Hector Lamarck. He's like, look, dude, you are the most incredible guy I used to play golf with and everything, but you've become a drainer. And until you acknowledge what you did wrong and until you accept what you need to change, man, I can't spend time with you because I used to have a lot of fun and you've accomplished so much at a young age, but now you sound like those miserable people that no one wants to be around.
It's a good friend to tell you that.
Hard. We were playing golf. We were on the 8th hole at Bighorn and he said, pull the cart over, and he confronted me. And so I'm like, okay, so I made a list of the things I did really well. It's what he told me to do. And then I made a list of my weaknesses. And one of them was leadership because he asked me, when you left, how many people said, thanks for changing my life? And I said, nobody. And he said, you might want to assess your leadership skills. Gave me 21 Irrefutable Laws by John Maxwell. I read it and I was like, oh my God, I violated every one of those laws. So I went back to Hector and said, I wasn't a leader. And Hector said, come look at my business. And I have volunteers. I don't have employees. I have people that are dedicated and committed to working weekends because they want to better their life, because they want to improve their life, which is what I love about network marketing, by the way. Network marketing seems to accumulate beautiful people who are aspiring to do great things. And what's crazy is people that work in a business that's paying them won't do the things the network marketing people will do, right? And so I was just fascinated by the business and the people. And I had an epiphany. And my epiphany was, if I could get this culture in a traditional business, I could kill it. And so when I launched Audigy Group, I used what Hector taught me in Primerica, personal, professional, financial goal planning relative to how you can achieve those goals through the business. And I started doing it with every employee I interviewed and said, if I could align the business with your personal, professional, financial goals, and I could show you how to accomplish your goals, would you be committed to helping the business hit its goals? And I took that out of Maxwell, said, if you want a hand, give one first. And so everybody I interviewed, I was like, look, I'm going to build this business so it can hit your personal goals, but you have to be committed to the business because it's the vehicle for you to do that. And can
I ask a few questions about this? So I love the idea of this, but I mean, there's so many employers that are trying to figure out their bottom line. And in their bottom line, they're trying to pay people just enough so they are productive and don't quit. And the people are doing just enough work so they don't get fired, right? It's this big kind of stalemate. But you're talking about when a person sits down to go to work for you to help them manage their personal, professional, and financial goals. And somebody's going to work for you for $67,000 a year. How does your entrepreneur not step in and say, first of all, 67,000 is not enough for you to be able to hit your personal, professional, financial goals. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that's the role that you need in that particular job. How do you balance showing them what they need to do in order to be able to, use this role to further their life? But at the same time, you don't want them to come back to you every 15 seconds and ask for a raise.
Oh, because so first of all, this real life example, my assistant I hired, my project manager, she was an MBA, came to me. She took a job for $78,000. I asked everybody that in our system, what's the most amount of money you've ever made in a year? And the most she had ever made was $78,000, which is why she was negotiating between 75 and 78 and trying to get 20% for incentives. So I said, I won't do the 20% incentives, but I will show you how to double your income. So she made $162,000 her first year because she trains on Cardone every morning. She goes to our events. And if she can demonstrate with the sales team that she can sell, then she can also take orders at the events. So what we tell every employee, and by the way, if people are curious if this works in traditional world, I sold my business to $1 billion Danish company. Very, if you know anything about the Danish, very conservative. And they specifically told me that doing personal, professional, financial goal planning and incorporating it into the budgets of a public company would not work. But after 2 years, they asked me to go in front of the board of directors in Denmark and asked how I turn around 8 countries and turn them into the top 8 countries for the organization. And I said, oddly enough, the personal, professional, and financial planning that you said doesn't work, does work. It works in Italy, it works in China, it works in Japan, it works in France, it works in India, it worked everywhere we rolled it out. Oddly enough, it worked. You know why? Because when you sit down with a human being, you say, has anybody ever asked you what you want to accomplish through your career? Personally, professionally, financially. Has anybody asked you what you want and then shown you how to go get it? And people will say 98% of the time, no. So if I could do that with you and demonstrate it to you, would you do the things you need to do in order to hit your goals? Because if I can show you I'm interested in your goals, then you'll be interested in mine. And so that's all we do is invite that conversation. But for the record, we took that $1 billion company, and because of the value enhancement that we rolled out globally with the global CFO and global CEO, we added $4.5 billion of value to it. Okay. We now actively have over 15,000 human beings on PPF planning in our technology because we do the budgets and we set the budgets, we set the targets and everything. So, because if you think of 1 year PPF goal, it could be something as simple as taking your family to Disneyland. It could be $3,500 for you. It's not a lot of money. So what we do is we have low target, mid target, high target for an organization. Then you have low, mid, and high for you as an individual. We budget a percentage of dollars, and we just make sure that their personal 1 year goals are under $5,000. But instead of writing them a check for $5,000, we write a check for them to attain the goal they wanted, and then they never forget you. Conversely, if it's a professional goal, we'll enroll you in an MBA program, or we'll pay for it as long as you sign an agreement that you're going to stay with the company for 2 or 3 years. We'll educate you. So as long as you're training and as long as you're committed, but it's really getting people isolated down to what do you want? How do you want to have it happen? What are you willing to commit to it? And what are you willing to put into it to get it? They'll take care of the numbers for the business.
So they're all incentive based. Beyond, so you set a base that's fair, whatever the salary is of the going market of that position.
Yep.
And then you find a way to create an incentive for them that's built on performance.
That's right.
And then you let them go ahead and make it. Go ahead and earn it. All they want.
And if they're not putting the effort into it, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to go say, hey, Eric, I thought you were serious about your goals.
Yeah.
But if I go to you and say, hey, Eric, I thought you're supposed to know that I hired you to be committed to my goals, you're not going to care anyway.
Right.
So here's something I've learned. If you're not committed to your goals, you're not going to care about mine.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're going after your goals, I'll accidentally achieve mine because I'm smart enough to construct the company to make that happen.
And it doesn't make people complacent when they hit a certain number or whatever?
I got kids, I just interviewed a bunch of kids. I got a kid that was told from his business owner working in the berry fields, he snuck across the border, didn't speak any English, learned how to speak English, watching Cardone U and Google Translate, working in the berry fields. And I heard him on a clubhouse doing a challenge, and I talked to him, and I moved him up to Vancouver, Washington. He's been with me now 2.5 years. He made $200,000 his first year. He made $500,000 last year. He makes $750,000 this year.
Doing what?
Working for me.
Doing what?
Selling client engagements.
Wow.
I've got a whole roster of those kids.
Yeah, I understand, but doesn't the business person say, okay, wait. He's making 250, 507. Wouldn't he do it for 100 and then 250 and 400?
Sure. Probably.
So are you just giving away a piece of your bottom line?
Well, I guess here's the thing. If I've been able to take my business from startup to $12 million a month in 42 months. And on the $12 million a month, I've been able to maintain from day one a 45% profit margin. Do I care how much my guys make? Don't I want everybody on my team making as much as possible?
Well, I guess.
As long as they're producing.
Right. So, and my whole point is this must be kind of the growth hack.
This is a growth hack because most entrepreneurs make $77,000 a year. They can't even fathom paying somebody more than $77,000 a year, which is their small thinking is keeping them small. But if I have kids making $700,000 a year and I promote that, I'm going to have a lot more people coming to work for me. They're going to have bases of 50.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to perform. They're going to have to train, execute, and perform to get to $700,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So every one of those people that do that, I just know that they're going to generate, for them to make $750,000 a year, they have to generate $7.5 million in sales for me. So I want 100 of those kids.
What if you have people in that's doing a job that has nothing to do with sales?
Our professional services team. So we have MBAs, we have CPAs, we have JDs. They can sales train too, and they can go to the events and they can write an order.
But what if they don't? What if the sales team's all taken up, or they're not a salesperson? Are there
every
incentives?
person in the company is a salesperson?
Okay.
Every person's either recruiting new talent for us, they're bringing customers in. My lawyers, my CPAs, they're required to bring 3 to 5 businesses into contact with our organization every month. Why wouldn't everybody be an advocate and a promoter of the organization? See, most business owners, they hire marketing agencies.
They're required to, or they get compensated?
They get compensated if they do.
Okay.
So when they come and complain about their compensations, how many people did you bring? See, business owners think that they hire all these people and they all have these linear jobs. If I have any business, it's everybody's job to be a promoter. But see, the business owner starts promoting, Then the business owner hires somebody else to promote their business so they can go be technically inclined with whatever they're doing. The people they hire to promote the business cannot promote the business. And first of all, how hard is it to hire a promoter of the business? Let's see. Are they going to say you're a novice in what you do, you're slow, you're sloppy, you treat people poorly, and you don't care about them? No. So what's a marketer going to do? They're going to say you're an expert or authority. They're going to say you're fast, efficient, and effective. They're going to say you treat everybody like family. They're going to say you're an advocate for whatever's important to them, and everybody loves working with you. And they're going to build you a website. They're going to do it. Then your phone rings, and somebody's going to answer it and say, hold. And the person that called said that didn't feel very good. Or they're going to show up at your office or your car lot or your remodel facility, and you're going to say, sorry, you promoted fast, efficient, and effective, and the person's sitting there 40 minutes waiting for their appointment. If you do not operationalize what your promote is, then you're a liar. And when you're a liar in business, you're always going to struggle. And you can see it in the numbers, because after 5 years, if 65% of your revenue isn't new revenue from an existing transaction, you either modeled your business wrong or you're a transactional business. Transactional businesses have low to no value. Recurring revenue businesses have high value. So all you have to do is look at the mechanics of the business and look at the results of the business, and the P&Ls never lie. And you can see exactly what's going on in the business. And then you got a problem recruiting great people, because great people are never going to work for a shitty business owner.
That's a good comment. It's true. Talk to me about the process of exactly how you do the personal, professional, financial goals for all your team members.
Yeah. So we roll, the way we do it is we teach the leaders to roll it out. So we have the rule of 3. So it goes 1 to 3 to 9 to 27, whatever. So the 1 would need to do it with the 3, and then the 1 would do it with the 3 to 3. So the leader would do it with their first 3 most closest people, and then help them do it to their closest 3. So
and is everybody empowered to kind of offer similar incentives?
It's a very specific process, and it would sound like this. I'd say, Eric, if you were to identify your 1, 3, and 5 year goals, 1 goal personally, 1 goal professionally, 1 goal financially that you'd like to accomplish in 1 year, 1 that you'd like to accomplish by the 3rd year, and then 1 in each category that you'd really like to have in the 5th year. Do you know what those things would look like? And most people are like, no, I don't know. I say, well, have you ever wanted to do a trip? Have you ever wanted to, like go see your family? Have you ever wanted to go to an island somewhere? Have you ever wanted to go to, and so then all of a sudden they're like, well, actually, yeah, I've always wanted to. For a single mother, when I was having this conversation, she just wanted to take her 2 little kids to the Stephanie Inn Hotel in the Oregon coast, and it was and because she'd never been able to afford to do it, and she was a receptionist. And I said, okay, well, how much? Because see now what I get, and this is why you would do it this way. I get the art of teaching somebody how to design their life. So I'd say, well, how much would it cost to stay at the Stephanie Inn? I don't know. Well, let's research it. So we research it. It's $200 a night, $250 a night. 3 nights would be $750. Let's write that down. How much gas would you have to use to go over to the Stephanie Inn? I don't know. Well, it's 100 miles, 200 miles. So that's another $50. Where would you like to take your kids to eat? I don't know. I've always wanted to go to Moe's and get clam chowder. Let's look at what an average price is for Moe's and the kids to get. So it takes time to interact with people. But by the time we're done, we know is $1,700 for her to take her kids, have a trip of her lifetime with her children. That's always been a dream. And then when we're done, we're like, okay, now look, that's $1,700. Let me show you. If you did these things for me, if you answered the phone, you wrote the training scripts, you worked with me, and at the end of 6 months, these were all the things that we had for your position within this organization, the company will write a check for you to go to the Stephanie Inn. Well, she didn't take her 7 months. She did it in 3.
Sure.
Because she knew and she learned. So now when she comes to me and she says, what's the next thing? I'm like, what other areas can you help the company? Well, I don't know. We'll apply the same lesson that we did to find out what it was going to cost you to go to the Stephanie Inn. See, I recognize it's my responsibility as a leader to teach people how to actually identify how to get what they want. And I think that's what's happened in school systems, with our parents and the church systems. You and I grew up in the church system. Do as we say, come to church, tithe, repent, or you're going to burn at the stake in hell. Like, I'm a father of kids. I just hard to believe that any father would want to burn their kids at the stake in hell. Like, so to me, I always had a disconnect with that. But people are programming us to do what they want us to do. The school systems, the government. And so people are waiting for someone to tell them what to do. And what we're not taught to do is identify what we want, what would be the process to go get it, and then actually put the energy, effort, to go do it. Well, so I learned this next iteration, if I could find people with a great attitude, train them to get the results, I'd have a higher loyalty with my team. And so I was able to build that, my second business, with no money from anybody, totally organically, hiring, training my team. And when I sold it, my president, he had 8 bosses. And he ended up making $14 million when it was all said and done. And 60% of my executives, it was the first jobs they ever had. And see, that was more gratifying than finding outsiders and trying to get them to work and bring their garbage in from other places. So Cardone Ventures just did exactly the same thing, but we did a lot faster because I'd already done it. So I knew exactly what I was looking for. But we went from 0 employees to over 200 in 36 months. Every one of those employees and our technology maps their PPF goals. Because now in the last 12 years, I built a technology. So when we go through that and we do the budget, it actually automatically calculates where you're moving towards those goals. So we can keep it in the budget and allocate it as a cost line in commissions. And then you as the employee can see in your little Gantt chart how fast you're moving towards the goal.
Does Grant use the PPF also?
They've started incorporating them in their sales. They're starting to work them into their
I could see that they had some of similar concepts, at least with some of the top guys, you know, like involving some of the top guys in the overall strategy, you know, and rewarding them based upon performance, you know. Guys.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing straight commissions. They just were high earners.
Right.
But we've been starting to incorporate the PPF process as well. And we definitely have it with the 1.6 billion clients in revenue that we work with now. All their employees are on PPF's plans.
Hold on, 1.6 billion clients?
That's what I'm actively managing $1.6 billion of businesses right now at Cardone Ventures.
What?
That's where my 30 million in revenue is coming from.
1.6 billion clients. Somehow connected to the companies that you're working with?
We're actively managing them on recurring revenue right now. My goal is to get to 10 billion in the next 36 months.
Wait a minute. You can't have 10 billion clients. There's only 8 billion people.
No. $10 billion of revenue.
Oh.
1.6 billion in revenue.
In revenue. I thought it was clients. I was holy moly.
No, I wish. Oh my God. I wish. That'd be a real 10X.
Yeah, first of all, you're only getting pennies there on those billions.
No.
All right. So we talked about the 10 elements. We talked about managing people in the personal, professional, and financial, which I think is fantastic. What are some of the business systems that you think are the most important for a business owner to have in place in order to be able to help effectively grow and leverage and scale their business?
Yeah. Statistically, if you're running at $100,000 of revenue per employee, you're not making any money because there's not enough revenue.
So $100,000 per employee
you're not making any
is a loser.
A loser. $250,000 of revenue per employee, you're making between 15 and 18% profitability. And at $500,000 of revenue per employee, you're making between 20 and 45% of profitability. So the number one most important thing is to know how to drive somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 of revenue per employee. And that's over 4,000 different businesses.
250 to 500K.
Yep. Will get you between 15 and 45% profitability within your
per
business.
Employee is 15 to what?
45%.
45%. So that's kind of the golden target.
That's right.
What are you operating at now? It has to be much higher.
550.
550 is what
I run it at a stabilized 550. So I'll stretch to 600 and then I'll hire a bunch of people and it'll drop back down to 500 and then I move it back up to 600.
I'm doing the math.
200 employees, 100 million in revenue. 120 million in revenue.
Let me do the math real quick on mine. I'm 500. So 500 is good.
And you don't have to tell me, but just write down what your profitability is.
Yeah, it's about
in
that.
there.
Yeah.
And this is why we have to engineer business, not every single business. And then you have contractors, they want to know about subcontractors, they want to know about offshore labor. So it's this whole matrix. But what we do is we walk people through exactly the configuration in their business. And then for them, they'll know exactly what that number is.
In this employee thing, just to go on a tangent for a moment on these systems, Are you seeing a change in how employees are interacting and bringing value to their workplace when it comes to in-person, when it comes to remote labor, when it comes to contract labor, when it comes to kind of our post-pandemic?
With the clients we serve or in general?
Just in general first, and then the clients you serve second.
Well, we see a lot of businesses struggling. It's hard enough to manage your employees when they're actively there every day, but when they're entirely remote, if you already have an organization that has low accountability, doesn't have any data to measure effectiveness, and then people are invisible, it's complicated. Done right, there's a lot of leverage.
So how do your companies manage it?
Because our technology maps to activity. So you think about if you have targets. Wait.
You said your technology
maps to activity.
Look
on there. Number 8 is data.
Number 8 is data, and 9 is technology in your 10 elements. But you have a way of doing business, but then you say you have a technology as far as how you're tracking things. So tracking people.
Yeah. So in a business, the core elements you need in a business to have engagement is inspiration, discipline, accountability, transparency, alignment, and results.
Hold on. Say it slower.
If you're going to build a business, you need 6 very specific elements. Inspiration, people have to be excited every day. Discipline in the business, or people get lazy. Accountability, or you have no discipline. Transparency, people need to know what they're supposed to be doing, where you're going, how they're involved in it. Alignment, they got to win when you win, and you got to win when they win. And then results, because if you don't have results, nothing happens. So if you have the system to track to that, and you can measure results on a daily basis, by the minute, by the hour, by the workday, then you can have remote because you know what's going on. But if you're winging it and people are scattered everywhere, you have particles and posts. There's nowhere for anybody attached to. And if you can't create a mission in your own organization, trying to do it remotely is going to be even harder.
And when you say you have technology, is it actual technology? Is it actual software? What is it?
It's a combination of softwares, but let me just tell you, like when we onboard the average business that's under $20 million of revenue, they're doing their financials when they do their taxes. They're not operating on a CRM that's being managed in real time. And so they're not inputting data or reviewing data. So they're not using even the most basic of tools. So when I say using technology, it doesn't mean they have to be technology you created, but it means technology that's readily and easily attainable, but you got to use it. And so what we do with our clients is we onboard them onto the different technologies so that they're actively using it. And where they're not using it, we're managing and monitoring it for them and then alerting them. It's like aircraft. It's like I learned this from one of my mentors, is Story Musgrave. He's the only astronaut that flew all 5 space shuttles designed, deployed, and fixed Hubble. He taught me how NASA sets a mission, the different teams that work across the deployment, the reentry, the activation, how they communicate with the astronauts while they're doing the mission, and how they get them back. And so I built that system for businesses.
Like what? So you're having you analyzed 7,000 businesses.
Yep.
Plus you had an astronaut help you.
Jim Collins, Good to Great, Great by Choice, How the Mighty Fall. John Maxwell on Leadership. And if you read Jim Collins' work, you understand why big businesses got devastated.
Yeah.
And what it was is they got bigger and bigger. They became hierarchical. They became defensive. And the people in charge were protecting their positions. And then the people that had the talent were being run off. Well, if you just reverse that to small business, how do you attract high talent and keep it? And then how do you maintain it? So just something as simple as the employee engagement model that we created. People were like, oh my God, it's so hard to hire good people, or why aren't there any good employees? Well, a business owner has to understand, to have a remarkable experience with an employee, it's actually 5 expertise. First, you got to be able to find those people. Second, you got to have something interesting to attract them. Third, you got to be able to align them with what you need them to do in the business to be the highest effect and impact. Fourth, you got to be able to develop them, because the business needs to grow and scale. That means they have to grow and scale because you're interdependent on them. And then fifth, you got to be able to retain them, because if you're churning your people, you're going to be in trouble. So having a single successful employee engagement means you have to be an expert in 5 things. Well, most business owners aren't an expert in any of them. So what we've done is created teams and technology that has that accountability and discipline for the business owner.
Sounds like you have so many pieces.
Well, I built technology and concepts around all of these things.
Right. Strategy, marketing, conversion, people. It sounds like you got
all
like
those
7 steps or 12 steps to every single one.
It's actually to get to 125 million, it's 78 things that you have to do.
78 things. So how does an entrepreneur manage 78 things?
Well, they don't, because they don't even know what they don't know.
I mean, if they did, you are.
Yeah. So when we show them and teach them and help them, because we have businesses going from 3 million to 30 million in 3 years that have been stuck at 3 for 10.
Really?
Yeah. Because you know, the whole process of building a business is trial and error. And if the pain is great enough or the conditioning has been pressed on us enough, we won't try. So the original work I did was Story Musgrave, the astronaut, John Maxwell in leadership, Jim Collins, Michael Gerber, and Sharon Lechter. So I took their work and I turned it into a concept. And the concept, John Maxwell talks about law of the lid in 21 irrefutable laws. The lid is a cap. You can't attract people higher than you underneath you. Okay, that's the concept. There's actually 3 lids in business. You have the belief lid, you have the operational effectiveness lid, and then you have the me, we, us leadership lid. And they work together. So you can have a business that's operating at a high level of excellence if your belief is low, right? Because the higher you believe, the higher you achieve. The lower your belief, the lower energy you put into it. If you have this high belief about being able to change the world and do everything, but your operational effectiveness is low, you're going to eventually lower your belief because you can't get to it because you suck at what you do. And if your leadership is low, you're not going to hold people accountable with discipline to drive operational effectiveness. So you can go rah, 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 like a lot of business owners do, but then nothing happens. So over a period of time, people lose their confidence and faith in the leader, so they leave. So the only way that you can actually attract great people and keep great people is if you have a high belief about what's possible. You become unbelievably effective at the pursuit of excellence in the process of accomplishing it. You've demonstrated the resilience with strong me leadership to punch through and be able to show people you can do that. Transferred it to we leadership so you can develop other leaders to go do it, which is what I love about network marketing. And then when your culture takes over and the team takes over and the opportunity is so massive, you move to us leadership. And what that us leadership does is it counteracts the statistics of something as simple as Gallup poll. Every year, Gallup poll does a survey, 100 million U.S. workers, 2/3 are disengaged, 18% are actively disengaged. 18 million U.S. workers admit that they're sabotaging the company they work in. So if you know active engagement in the workforce out of 100 million U.S. workers is only 35, 40%, the best you can try to do is get that to 60 or 70%. But if you can get it to 60 or 70%, you have a multiplier, and then your culture will run off the bottom 30%, because if everyone's goals are aligned with the business, they don't want the people putting a drag on them. So they'll chew them up and spit them out. The hardest part for a business owner is to get big enough and create that kind of environment and that kind of culture that your team will run off the slackers so that your business can be a high performance business because everyone's winning with the business. Now go to the economics. I'd rather have 2/3 of the number of employees that are all making so much money they don't know where they could replace it at and stay with me than have more employees with 1/3 of them sucking off of what everybody else is doing. So the average business is running at $300,000 of revenue per head. If I can run at $500,000 of revenue per head, I can pay my people $500,000 or $1 million a year. They can't get it anywhere else. They're never going anywhere else. And they're more thrilled with me. And if I show them how to invest it like Grant's done at Cardone Capital, I have kids that have more net worth in Cardone Capital than most adults have saved their whole life.
Yeah.
Then it's the system and it works and it attracts high performers to you.
Right. So you're a relatively young man for having achieved this much.
I don't know. I'm 55.
We're both young.
Yeah.
We're give us another 10, 15 years, we'll be in middle age, right? With the advancements in technology, with 10X health.
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
We're going to be reversing
120 is a lock, brother. 120 is a lock.
Guaranteed.
We got to get this, we got to, stop, not slow down aging. We got to get it reversed. Let's go. So you've accomplished a lot, but it feels to me like this is a fresh adventure for you. Is it?
It's a mission.
I mean, but
it's
fresh now. I'm talking about, what you've been building the last few years, taking all this life experience and pouring it in to businesses, helping them grow, helping them scale.
Yep. Business owners and people.
And there has to be a lot of like personal satisfaction in the whole personal, professional, and financial goals with the team. Seeing that happen inside the team, that has to feel good.
That is the reason I do it. The team is the business owners I serve. It's the employees who work for me. It's the employees that work for the business owners I serve. Watching people go from a normal state, whatever that might be, to a remarkable state, and being in that energy and watching the success and seeing it spill over to other people. You know what it feels like when you go to some of these high performance network marketing organizations, and they're celebrating everybody and rewarding everybody, and people become $100,000 earners, and 3 years later, $1 million earner, and then a $5 million earner, and you're watching the evolution of people's lives in front of your eyes, and you know you're a co-creator of that and a contributor to it. And the thing that I wanted to do was bring that into traditional business. That's what's missing. So that secret, and you'll get this because you live in the world. When I'd go to those Primerica meetings and I'd go to the corporate meetings, such a dichotomy. And then those same corporate people that are sitting there going, oh, I hate this meeting and I hate working here. I would run into them over in the weekends, and they're busting their ass trying to learn and putting themselves out there, going and cold calling and trying to recruit people in grocery stores, making themselves so uncomfortable. But at work, they won't make a cold call.
Right.
Well, it's because they don't believe there's enough in it for them at work. So what I did is I removed myself from both those situations and said, if I could take and remove that thought that there's not enough in it, that you can't accomplish your long and short-term goals inside of a job, if I could change that and put it into traditional business and just be smart enough to pick the businesses that will allow it to happen. That's why I did the research. Then I could create magic in traditional business. I could turn every traditional business into the same environment that you find in network marketing. And so like we teach business owners how to teach their teams, how to go out and promote in the community and bring clients in and get paid for it. When I ask business owners, do you have any incentives for anybody on your team to go out into your own community to recruit customers and clients and bring them back into the business? They look at you like they never even thought. They're like, no. So we created an affiliate program for all our business owners so their employees can sign up and get paid for bringing people into the business. I'd rather give them the money than the marketing agency.
Sure.
And so when you think about it, in these micro markets, the average business in a micro market, it's getting their customers within 3.8 miles of their four-wall point of delivery in 22 minutes. If they could turn everybody in that little tiny micro market ecosystem into a promoter for them and reward people for it, their businesses would be huge. But instead, they're giving their money to Facebook, getting throttled down, and then yelling at their people for not converting good enough because their systems are horrible inside the business.
Right.
We're just fixing that.
Love that so much. This is all so fascinating. I do want to pivot for a minute and talk about network marketing because you have some experience with it. You know, and our audience is entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, a lot of home-based business type folks, and a good portion are network marketing people. You know, some are not. They're just entrepreneurs listening and picking up ideas and strategies, right? So what do you like about the network marketing model for the average person? And my big question is this, the second part. Knowing what you know from your experience looking at network marketing and seeing people involved and your experience scaling traditional businesses, what advice do you have to the network marketer to scale their business? Because I mean, even just watching the personal, professional, and financial goals, leaning into that with your new recruit and sitting down with them and finding out what they want and then helping them map out a plan to get there is a piece. But on top of that, you know, how would you, let's just say, I know you're not necessarily acquiring network marketing distributorships, you know what I'm saying? But if somebody came and said, you know, look, grow my network marketing business, take your technology, take all of your stuff and tell me how I can use it to grow my network marketing distributorship, you know, with 0 employees working out of my house, you know, part-time or full-time. What advice would you have for them? How would you use it?
Well, same advice I give to business owners, which is this: somebody's got to be the example. So if you're going to recruit people, and a recruit is not a recruit till a recruit's recruited to recruit. And the reason that's true is because you never know who's actually going to stick in your business. So if you're in network marketing or you're in traditional business, somebody has to demonstrate. If you're making 70 grand as an average median income, nobody's going to get excited about following you. So first you need to find something that you can model and mimic of somebody else that's been successful. You need to learn how to actually do the business. But you only learn to do the business so then you know it's to show so you can show somebody else how to do the business. And so the rule of 3 says you do it until you perfect it, and then you're no longer allowed to do it again. And then you need 3 people, and you need to do it through them so you can expand. So that's traditional business, network marketing. And there's 7 promotes. Promote what you do, promote why you do it, promote the benefit of what you do, promote the benefit of somebody joining you. And
Hold on. This is another one of these lists of things that you need to slow down and just take it one at a time. The 7 promotes. Please list them clearly so everybody can understand.
Promote what you do. Promote why you do it. Promote the impact of what you do for the person that you're doing it for. Promote your value proposition. Promote why somebody should come join you to do it with you. Promote them to take over what you're doing so they can grow in your organization and flourish with you. Promote teaching the 7 promotes to everyone you're doing it with. Now that's traditional business or that's network marketing. And if you're an example and you're actually showing them, this is why I promote, this is how I promote, this is how I convert the promote, and this is how I win with the conversion economically. I'm going to show you exactly how to do exactly what I do. Then the operations kicked in. Here's the documents. Here's the paperwork. Here's the process. If you just follow that, and it's with the strategy, I want to make 100 grand, then I want to make $1 million, then I want to make 10 million. It forces me to ask, I would go to every network marketing company and say, who makes $1 million? Who makes 100 grand doing what? Who makes $1 million doing whatever? Who makes 10 million doing whatever? And then I would go and look at those businesses and see which ones I'm most excited about. And then I would start I would learn how to do it, make my 100 grand as fast as I can. And then as soon as I get through 100 grand, I have a new promote. Within 1 year or 2 years, I went from 0 to 100 grand. You want me to show you how to do it? You want me to show you how to do it? Would you like to make 100 grand? Would you like to make 100 grand? So now I'm back in my promotes. And while I'm teaching somebody make 100, I'm going to 300, and then I'm going to 500, and then I'm going to 700. Every time I bust through, that's a new promote. Because that way people that are making 50 can say, I can go make 100. People that are making 100 can say, I can make 250. So you first have to be an example. You have to be committed to promoting the whole journey. So people, because if you just go to people and go, I'm $1 million earner, they're gonna be like, how long did it take? What did you do? But if you promote, I earn nothing right now, and I'm starting this journey. Here's what I did. Here's how I did it. Here's my first sale. Here's how long it took me. Then people can see exactly how you did it, and then they'll want to get behind you. And then a recruit isn't a recruit. So the person I recruited isn't really a recruit until they've recruited a recruit, because they won't recruit if they don't believe. This is where that belief comes in. Mm-hmm. If I show them how to do it, they're going to believe. I went from nothing to 100,000 to $1 million. Oh my God. They're going to recruit somebody else. Then the person's going to recruit somebody else, and then somebody's going to quit. And the 4th down recruit could be your number 1 guy in 5 years.
Yeah. Happens all the time.
But if you stop with 1 recruit, they're not really a recruit, because you didn't spread the belief, and they didn't spread the belief. That's why I say belief is a catalyst to everything. And then the effectiveness, the ability to convert. And then the me leadership to be tough enough to get to 100 grand, to get to $1 million, to try to strive to get to 10 million. And then the willingness to teach others how to do it. Me leadership, then we leadership. And then when you have a business that's got hundreds of $1 million earners, the us leadership kicks in, because it's no longer me, it's everyone's doing it. It's our culture. It inspires it, and it trains it, and it's duplicatable. And that's when the whole thing takes off. It doesn't matter if it's a single location and you want to go to 1,000 locations in traditional business, or if it's network marketing. The system is going to be the same in how you get big fast and make a lot of money and impact lives. And that's what we've reverse engineered and created.
How important is big fast?
It's relative to the human being. It's not for me to judge. For me, it's really important. I want to have a $10 billion, I want to be managing.
Is it easier to build an important company slow or fast?
It depends on, it entirely depends on what your skill set is and what your deliverable is.
My bias inside of network marketing is that success is attracted to speed. Success loves speed. There's a velocity, there's a momentum, there's an energy that happens from it that you don't get too many people have bought into the turtle and the rabbit story. You just be the turtle.
Well, and they're coached that in traditional business.
I just don't believe the turtle gets run over by a truck all the time.
I agree. Like people ask me all the time, how are you getting such high quality talent? We have 200 remarkable employees. And I go, do you know how many people we interviewed to end up with 200? Do you know how many we hired to end up with a net 200? Velocity is everything.
Yeah.
So we've interviewed probably 500. We've hired probably 300, and we have 200 because we cut them as fast as we recognize that they're not serious about their being in that position.
Right.
So velocity is everything. So I talk about the 4 A's. When you're up against pressure, you're trying to sort through something. The 4 A's is acknowledge where you're at, accept it, don't put any resistance into it, act towards what you want, and as you gain momentum, attack speed. So when you talk about velocity is everything. Especially when you get the mechanics to work out that it works, because now everyone wants to get behind you and everyone wants to move fast and everyone wants to chase the success. So for us, it's promoting the success of the business owners that we work with. And for me, it's promoting the success of my team that came in and started in 3 years. They're making $500,000 or $1 million a year. So I want to promote all that. So everyone wants that velocity.
In our conversations, I am like triggering now all the different promotes that you've been, in just casual conversations. There was that promote. Oh, there was that promote. And one of the things is one of my superpowers is I'm a promoter.
And you're a world-class promoter.
Whether it's promoting an event, promoting a concept, promoting an idea, promoting an ideology, a culture, whatever, I'm very, very good at it. And I learned that the promoters make all the money. The tacticians, they make some money, but the promoters that are tacticians as well, they make all of it. So I was like, okay. All right, I can do that. I can figure that piece out. So look, all of this is fascinating, and at some time, I'm going to be respectful to your time now.
I mean, you and I,
I'm going to let you go.
You and I could talk for 5 hours straight.
But look, breaking down all the different 10 elements and all these different things are something that we can do it in a future conversation. But growth and scale, managing people with personal, professional, financial goals, the 4 A's, the business systems, the 500K per employee, all of this stuff. And just the breadth of business experience through this process. I'm grateful that you went through those 7,000 companies to find out what works. I'm grateful that you did the deep dive and you had the awareness to do so, to realize that how valuable that would be. I'm grateful that you got stabbed in the back early on in your career and you had issues and challenges and business relationships that didn't work out in the way that you'd like them to work out. Same thing with, I'm grateful for the same type of betrayals that happened in my past, because we're stronger now. We're better now. We're more equipped now. And we're more prepared to be able to help others now,
And I can't take like a lot of this velocity thing. Like I've been working on this and working on it. And I actually legitimately all of a sudden found myself in a place where like I overwhelmed myself. Once I sold my business, I integrated it globally, drove that business from $1 billion to $4.5 billion. And then I was done. And I went home and told Natalie, there's so much here. I just don't see how I could actually start it. And what if I do start it and I fail and I'm not the hero I thought I was? And I went through like this really weird moment in time. And she's the one that found Grant Cardone. And I got into the 10X and I was like, oh my God, if this guy is really who he says he is and has the audience he says he has, this could be the answer. And we went to the 2019 Growth Con. And when the first half of the first day, I was like, all these amazing business owners, great culture. Everyone wants to get big. Everyone wants velocity. And everything Grant did, I complimented 8 out of the 10 things that he did. And that relationship has been phenomenal. And so for me, it's just so much fun to have this kind of success and impact lives and work with people, meet people like you, and it's like, it's been a real blessing and I love it every single day.
Well, Brandon, I'm grateful that you guys found each other too. I think it's a great partnership. Cardone Ventures is moving and shaking and doing great things. Thanks for bringing value today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on your show.
Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Brandon Dawson. If you did, as always, if you would subscribe to this channel and share this with someone you think would get value, I know that they'll thank you for it. Until next time, have an amazing day.